Boo! Whitey Face Tano here, internet's busiest rap battle fan, and today we're looking at Jeff the Killer vs. Slenderman by Dudz. Right off the bat, I think it's worth having a discussion about how we judge projects in relation to each other, because this battle has a pretty high bar to sort of face off with in terms of there are three other famous and I would say iconic iterations of this exact matchup, that being ERBP and Keyblade, as well as Fight Marker, which did release after this battle, but obviously it's hard not to at least think about it considering they came out in the same year. Not to mention that these have been two very well cataloged characters in the community, and you sort of have a lot of projects and battles that have already used them. They're very popular within the community, and so while I do try to spend most of this review sort of focusing on its individual traits of this battle, I do think some of it is worth comparing and contrasting to other projects, at least to show where I think it takes its inspiration from, because I think it's very clear this is a project that takes after a lot of different sort of series. Starting off with the writing, I think the pacing of this project is actually pretty solid. I would say the battle itself cuts off right before it drags, which I think is very good. I think I would be really concerned if this battle had gone on for like a few bars, just a few bars longer on any of the verses. I think you would start to have a problem where it's like, I don't know if there's enough going on to sort of keep my interest right now. But otherwise, I think it's actually, I think timing wise, like it's a pretty short, sweet, quick project, I would say. There's a couple filler lines in this thing that I am not really huge on personally. I'll read off a few that I have on my notes here of like, my legend's what settled this whole sensation, spreading shock and fright to entire nations. My lines are packing heat because I'm giving burns like bleach. Feeling stressed? Should be. You're next on my murder spree. Those are examples of lines that are like, I get it. They're kind of just fleshing out the characters a little more. But again, we're talking about Jeff the Killer and Slenderman, and especially in this very like bare bones kind of battle where, and I say that not in a negative sense, but in like this is meant to be a pretty simplistic project battle wise. I really don't think you have much time to waste on those kind of things. There are also a lot of derivative lines as well in this, lines that are like you've seen them be said in other projects, and while of course, you know, you're gonna cross over material every now and then, I think the amount that happens in this battle and the way that it happens feels pretty, like, it feels extremely derivative and noticeable to me. I'll list off a few here again. But thanks to rap battles, you went from slang to slave. I think that's, you know, that's the midge battle. You got outclassed by a math teacher. You passed the same effect when seen on Gacha Life. That's the Fresh Canal battle. Should have expected that when you lack a mouth on your face. Suit and tie fit just right, since this just became your own funeral. Those are, like, those two lines there are just very, like, they're very stock. You've definitely heard them in other Slenderman and Jeff the Killer battles before. And then there's also the ego reference, which Snakebite did the same thing back when they did the J. Edgar Hoover battle of like the referencing Lex Luthor, Rex loses, skill this freaky fly like a Superman. I think it's a cute reference, honestly. I'm surprised that people are still referencing battles in that way, low-key. But it does add on to my feeling of like, okay, I mean, this is just other things that I've seen before. And while it is cute, I think there are qualities to like about that kind of thing. It is worth bringing up as a flaw of this battle in terms of like, if you want me to judge this battle on its own merits, you're really not making my job easy to do so. That being said, there are one or two solid lines here that I found that I did not immediately recognize, and I thought were pretty solid on their own. Dare to enter my domain, there's no way you can survive, but judging by your face, you're always due to crossing lines. That's what's written on here. I don't know if that's like the exact thing that ends up in the battle. Might have just mistyped that, but I thought that was pretty solid. Same with so do you what you do best and just stay in the corner. Those are pretty solid lines. So it's not that this battle doesn't have any solid punchlines or disses or whatever, but you know, a lot of it just feels sort of not anything. We're not treading a lot of new territory here. And the parts that we do, again, I do enjoy, which makes me wish that the whole battle was just treading new territory, finding, like, if you could find, I'd be truly impressed if in the year of our Lord 2025 at least, you know, well, it's 2026 now when I'm filming this review, but 2025 when this was being released, if you had been able to come up with new lines for Jeff the Killer and Slenderman, I think that's honestly pretty impressive. So, I mean, again, props to be had, but it makes me wish that we see more of that. Moving on to the audio, the audio here is pretty standard. There's nothing I would say that's too special about it. I would say it's a solid listening experience. I never found any huge issues with the mixing or just the audio quality of anything. You know, there's nothing to really shake at positively or negatively about this battle audio wise. The beat, I think, is the most typical thing you could have used for this battle. It's like if you asked me what does Jeff the Killer versus Slenderman by Dudz sound like with a beat, this beat is almost exactly what enters my mind. And in that way, it's like good on filling your, the identity of this project pretty damn well. But at the same time, it does not feel like anything too special. And again, I don't want to reward ingenuity for the sake of ingenuity. But in cases like this, I think it's fair to say that, like, I don't know how much more there is for me to sort of get enthusiastic about with the beat. Same with the casting of Vlad as Jeff the Killer, which again, it's not to say that I have any issues with it, but he's really just doing his regular thing of like, I'm Vlad and I'm crazy, ooh. And Vlad's not bad at doing that. He's a pretty good actor in that way, honestly. Of like, he fills that role pretty well, but we've seen him do it so many times before, and he does not really try to do anything new in this iteration that it makes me wish that sometimes Vlad would just go, let me try something new with this. Let me switch it up on my Jeff the Killer, you know? But he doesn't, and it's a shame, really, because I do think if given the opportunity to, I would love to see Vlad shake it up on a roll, but this is not one of those cases. And again, not that it's bad, it's just, it does not inspire anything new. The only thing that feels like a slight shakeup, honestly, is Brodekai as Slenderman. It does not sound like too many other Slenderman casts that I have heard, and I think it's honestly, Brodekai does a pretty damn solid job here. I actually enjoy this as like an interpretation of Slenderman, and again, it's one of the few parts of this battle that feels like it does something kind of new, and it shows you something that you might not have seen as much. Granted, maybe this casting exists from somewhere before, and I'm not personally familiar with, but again, I don't know. I thought that Brodekai's casting is not something that I've seen personally, and I found it to be pretty enjoyable in this battle. Finally is the video editing. As with a lot of other things about this project, it's pretty solid. It's nothing too crazy. It's pretty standard for rap battle fair stuff. I thought that it all looked very solid. It all looks very clean editing wise, and I thought that all that looked pretty good, you know? I don't have any major complaints on the editing end. That being said, Dud's footage does look pretty low quality across the battle. You can certainly see a few places where the face loses a few pixels in the sort, and it does not feel like it's a super intentional decision. The only place where it might is like the first 4 lines where it's that in-person footage and it feels a little bit more spooky and found footagey in that way. So it does work there, but for the rest of the battle, especially on the Jeff the Killer side, you can really sort of see like how sharp the sort of it all looks, and it's not too flattering in that way. The performance video-wise are pretty solid. Again, I don't think they're anything insanely special for either of these characters. I mean, I always have to give props to like people who do this kind of thing where it's like that full Jeff the Killer face makeup and keeping your eyes open like the whole time. I could never do that, infamously so, as some of you might know. And I think I do have to give some credit. Even a typical Jeff the Killer performance, by standard, is still pretty impressive. It's still like a pretty solid, pretty impressive performance, I would say. It definitely has like great qualities to it. But again, that being said, it's a Jeff the Killer performance. I don't know how much there is for me to comment on, other than I think Dudz did a pretty solid job on the costume and performances front. Other things about the video is that its use of the in-person footage for Jeff's parts do not feel like they make as much sense compared to Slenderman, and you can definitely tell when it's in-person footage because of the differences in lighting, which again, I appreciate that it's trying to take a swing, but it does not feel like a very calculated swing, if that makes sense. Maybe there's more storyboarding going on than I see, but it does not feel like a very cohesive storyboard, and it does not feel like the most interesting battle visually to me. And those shakeups by adding those, in-person shots, again, I noticed them, but I don't feel like they're doing enough to present something interesting here. The only other thing I've got to mention is the amount of cameos that you have in this. I saw a lot of them. Obviously, there's that one section with like all of them, but across the battle, you see quite a few cameos, and I always think that kind of thing's very impressive. I love cameos, stuffing the fuck out of my battles like that. I think that shit's super fun and cool, and so I do appreciate seeing it here also. And I mean, again, it's just one of those things that's like, you can tell that it has this little love letter quality to it that I can appreciate. But at the end of the day, my feeling on this battle is that its biggest sin is probably not doing anything all too interesting. And again, this is a battle that you can tell is meant to be like, hey man, I love all these things about the community. This, like the Matthew Thomas, ERB Creepypasta style intro, all those cameos, all those line references, it all feels like, you know, look how much ball I know. And I get it to an extent, look how much ball you know, man, great job. And, but really, you should be able to show it more. I think that you are able to show it more in the battle in terms of just like you're watching all of these battles. Maybe you can pick up a couple other things from it too in terms of like shakeups and creative ideas from it. That it makes me wish that this battle did more. One example of that is just like the Eyeless Jack third party that's like tacked on at the end. It does not feel very useful. It adds like a whole minute of runtime to this thing. I would either fully commit and just make him a third party straight up, again, spicing up this battle in some way that makes it beyond just the typical 1v1, gives it a more memorable quality, or just cut it entirely and just let the battle stand on its own and not feel like it's trying to make this little winkety wink nudge nudge joke at the end, you know? I don't think it adds enough to justify that, and it sounds like I'm getting angry at it, which I mean I am for camera. Realistically, I don't think it's the biggest sin ever, but I do think that it's the kind of thing where you gotta be really willing to kill your babies there, man. You gotta be really willing to kill your ideas there when we're talking about the benefit of the greater project. The last note I have on here is outro a little long. Outro's a little long. It's like a minute or something. You can cut down on that. I don't know why it was that long. Again, especially with like the on top of like the Eyeless Jack section later, so that's not even including that. So yeah, it's like the runtime, like the battle ends halfway through the video's runtime. That's kind of crazy, man. How does that happen? I mean, I know how it happens, but come on, what? But yeah, it's a pretty decent project. It's on. I mean, again, I have been kind of stiffing at most of this review, but I think it is very solid. I just wish it did more. It had more reason to sort of get me to return to it and get me to give more thoughts on it. But it feels like it's not interested in showing its hand for some reason. That it's very content with just playing it real nice and safe and light. And there's nothing wrong with projects like that, but naturally they're just not going to be viewed as well. So I mean, I guess I have to give this battle a strong 5 to a light 6. Transition. Did you give this battle a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, please don't cry, hit that bell as well. Over here next to my head is another review you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. With any face tenno. Forever.